Hello everybody and welcome. I'm Cindy Daychuck with Queen Bee Creations, and today we are going to get started on this big beautiful antique buffet. Now, before anybody yells at me, I paint everything. Literally, I don't care. However, this piece is in and of itself gorgeous. And I have nothing against natural wood. And in fact, I love the look of some natural wood pieces along with some painted pieces. And I don't necessarily like having all the painted pieces exactly the same and the same color in a room anyway. So I like the combination and the blending. That said, this piece, although the wood is in great shape and could be left alone, I got it so that I could paint it, because that's the fun part for me. I do typically with these pieces post them ahead of time so that people have an opportunity to, one, opt out of watching me paint it, or to jump in and say, I've been looking for something like that and I'll take it as is. Because I'm sitting here with paintbrush in hand and paint on the floor. Nobody's done that. So it's fair game. Now, that said, I am not looking at painting it too wild or crazy, although, dog, although it's going to look a little wild and crazy today, because I'm kind of starting with some brighter colors before I then in the later stages start to mute it down and do some aging on it. So I am looking ultimately for it to be a little bit in keeping with its age. So I'm not looking at doing anything super crazy, super wild, super funky, but it's gonna look that way to start. So it has been cleaned, and trust me, these pieces, hey Lisa, good to see you here. These pieces are always dirty and grimy. This has been sitting, I got it out of somebody's garage, so it's been sitting out there for quite some time because the gentleman had passed away from the home over a year ago, and the home pretty much has been abandoned since then. And it's been sitting outside of my home for the requisite number of weeks as well. So did the big clean. And here's the thing, I get people that ask when I'm dealing with antiques, like, what do I do on the inside? This looks old on the inside. It's got the little half shelf. The shelf on the bottom is great, like not great necessarily in terms of wood. It does not look new. It is not new. And on this side, it's got a little piece of the wood missing. It's worn smooth, so there's no chance of splinters, but it's not 100% whole. I leave that. I don't paint that. I will hemp oil it down to add some moisture back into the wood. So as much as I paint the outside, I do not paint the insides. I leave them natural. Now, if somebody really wanted it painted, okay, we could talk, but I like the contrast. I don't like it looking brand spanking new on the outside and then really old wood on the inside, but it is an old piece, and I like to leave parts of it to give homage to that age. The one exception is this upper drawer, which I can't get to right now. Let me see if I can for you. I'll show you. This middle drawer is disgusting. So it's got felt that has been half pulled off. It's got newspaper attached to the bottom, and I don't have to clean it all out before I start painting, but I will be cleaning all that out. So I will have to, typically what I do is I take the spray bottle and I start spritzing the water down, watering it down, taking a putty knife and starting to scrape away. I use some Glue Gun to get rid of the glue. It's a process and it's not fun. but that will get done too. So after I've done the painting, and I usually don't bother to condition the insides until after I've done painting, so that I can clean up any of my spills or where I haven't painted. So nice. So I can clean all that away, and then I condition all the insides. So everything's been cleaned down first and foremost, and I am not going to necessarily prime. So I am just going to get started in on painting, and we'll see how it goes. But this has got these beautiful serpentine kind of drawers up the front. Can you see this big, beautiful curve that happens here? So as I said, we are starting a little bit bold, but this is the base coat, this is the beginning, and there's more layers coming. So having said that, the colors that I'm starting with, and primarily I'm using DIY paint, which is a clay-based paint, mostly because I'll be doing a lot of blending later. And I'll want to reactivate some of this paint. I do have a big honking can of Annie Sloan chalk paint in Old White, because I've been doing a lot of frames and I've been doing a lot of other stuff. I love Annie Sloan paint too. So because I have that in white, that's the white that I'm going to be using. And there is nothing wrong with mixing paint. So because I don't sell either of these paints, I can mix and match if I want it. So we are going to the colors to start. And remember, I said it's going to be kind of neutral. It's still kind of its age, but it's going to have a little bit of color to it too. Liquid Sunshine, nice bright yellow. We have got Summer Crush, which is kind of an orange. And I also have some Cowgirl Coral, which is, not surprisingly, a coral color. Now, I'm going to be using these and blending these, and I'll be using some of the white to tone it down a little bit. This is the base coat. We'll be adding layers on top of it. Just hints of these will kind of shine through and add some dimension. Very often when there's a raised backing, I will remove it when I paint, because I want to ensure that the top is all one smooth surface. This actually sits behind the top surface. So I'm going to paint it in place so that I get kind of a continual look from across the top and up. But I will remove it once the top is all painted and paint that small little edge on it, and I will paint the lower crevice. Not that you'll necessarily see either of them, but what will happen is, sorry about that sound if you got it, I turned notifications off, but maybe not. But they'll take this off to move it. And I just hate when they take a piece off that it looks really unfinished. So I'm going to be painting pieces that you don't see when it's done, just because I'm a little anal. But having said that, it's a small little piece. But I'm going to leave it in place so that when I am starting, I get a chance to just kind of do the entire look. All right. I am going to be using, with these three colors, the yellow, the orange, the coral, Paint Pixie dusty brushes. So they're nice and flat, but good coverage. They help me with the blending. Really like these brushes. They don't hold tons of paint, unlike a chalk brush, which is nice and thick. These are beautiful brushes too. If I was doing a lot of the same color, I would definitely be using some of these. They hold a whack of paint, but I'm going to want to kind of play with it a little bit as I go. So I find that Paint Pixie brushes work great to be able to do that. This is just a fine mist sprayer. It's not major water, but I like to get my brushes a little bit wet before I start. And they don't fit in these small pots. And apparently there's a lot of space there behind that drawer. So I'll pull these out a little bit. And I may want to just kind of hold it in place to get a little bit of color on it to start. Okay, I love that color. That's nice and bright and sunshiny. I'm just going to get a little bit of the yellow across on these upper drawers to start. Let me get that one back in before we go and add a little bit more of some of the other colors. And like I said, just looking at creating a bit of a base here. And as much as we'll go into a little bit more aged and neutral colors, I'm also looking at having some color underneath, right? So a little bit of a flow on some of those colors. And this one you can see is a lot less, only because I had just spritzed my brush. So I was getting a little bit more water on that one as I started. Just add a little bit more color in. So we're not looking for perfect coverage here. We're just looking for a little bit of the base. And as you do this, one of the things that you can play with some of your colors this way is because as you go and you're layering colors on top, they start to create, because even the later colors aren't 100% opaque, you start getting almost like this reflection of colors coming through. And so when you layer, let's say, a white over this, if it's not fully opaque, you're going to get a slightly different tonal quality to the white than if you were layering it over top of a red or a black or something like that. So that's one of the beauties of working with different colors, is that you can create some tonal values. Okay, this can be a problem. This one was a little bit thick, and I spritzed a little bit of water in. Oh, I was thinking, I don't have stir sticks here. All right, so this is down at the bottom of the can, the rest of this color. But the one thing that's great about the DIY paints is because they're clay-based, you can reactivate them with water. So as much as this was really starting to thicken up, and you can do this with chalk paints too as they start to thicken, but once the chalk paint is dry and totally crusty, you're pretty much out of luck. But with the DIY, even if it's kind of hardened and crusty, you know how like if you dug up a big hunk of solid clay from your backyard, if you put it into water and you left it, it'll start to soak up that water and kind of reconstitute. Same thing with these paints. So the nice thing then is that you're able to kind of get your money's worth out of them. You don't have as much loss or waste in a lot of respects as you might with some of the other paints. So I tend to be able to okay. So far you guys still hanging in, right? This is where I get a lot of people afterward that maybe didn't tune in and see this is just the base coat. We're going to be adding other colors. I'm still going to be keeping in you know, kind of in place with the age of the piece. And then I start getting oh my gosh, somebody really wants me there. So I start getting all of the comments. Let me see if I can do something about this. No. Oh, Stephanie, sanding the piece. It depends upon the type and nature of the paint. If you were doing like a latex paint, sand first. The beauty of like chalk paints or clay-based paints like I'm using, they will stick to almost anything without the need to sand. Now that said, if there was a lot of crap on this or a lot of crud, I would sand. If it was a really, really super slick surface, you know how like maybe you have some of those high gloss finish pieces of furniture that you wanted to do, I would do a quick rough sand of that too. But these paints, they don't need to necessarily have the sanding for them to be able to adhere. And that's one of the beauties of it. Now, so there are times that I do sand the piece first. Again, if it was a really slick surface, if it had, oh, you know how sometimes you get dressers and people's kids have stuck stuff to it. I'm using Goo Gone and chemicals to try and get all of those stickers off. I will probably sand over that. I have occasionally done some really modern pieces that had that really slick surface to begin with. I will sand that too. So there are exceptions, and so don't ever kind of think, oh, you never have to. There are definitely some times. Similarly, there's times where it's not in as good a shape as this. I do a lot of old pieces of furniture, and sometimes, you know, they've been stuck in people's barns, and they've got rough surfaces, things are peeling off. I'm sanding then. So it's not a never sand. It's you really have to take each piece as it comes, but you don't have to always sand. Okay, as I'm adding orange in now, are people still hanging in with me here? Yeah, so this is where when people tune in late, that they start sending me nasty notes, right? They're kind of going, what the heck are you doing? That was so beautiful before. But almost always, when you start painting a piece, and especially when you're on the base coat, or if you're doing multiple colors and tones, it always looks awful, right? It doesn't matter who you are. It is always going to look awful first. I have some big hunks of paint here that I was trying to avoid having fall into my can again. Now, I did have somebody that emailed me about, oh, I don't know how you always have such a vision for where things are going, and you know, you have a plan that you're able to execute. I don't always have a plan. I have an idea of some of the base colors that I wanted to start with. I have a general idea of where it's going, but here's the thing. They don't always work out the way that they seem like they will in my head. So there are lots of times, hi Margaret, nice to see you checking in. So a lot of times I start out with an idea, and then it of necessity morphs into something else, because you know what, sometimes the colors don't end up looking like how I want it to start with. Or sometimes as it starts to go and I get further along with the piece, I get a better idea. But here's the thing. You never know unless you try it. And it's just paint. So if I was getting going with this and it wasn't kind of moving in the direction that I wanted, and I wanted to take it another direction, I can. So usually what stops people is that first putting paint to the brush and the brush to the piece of furniture, right? People freak, oh my gosh, what if I'm wrong? Or what if it looks awful? Then just paint it again. Just cover it again, right? Use that as your base coat and take it in another direction. Now I will say, you know, my husband saw this and he thought, oh, do it navy. Navy and the hardware bright gold, he really likes that combination. And I had done a big, tall kind of desk and bookshelf in a navy with the gold. But all the open shelving and the desk, when you opened it up, was all beautiful mahogany, which I left natural, right? Just oiled it up. And you're able to see in that contrast of the red of the mahogany with the gold and the navy, looked awesome. For this piece, I ultimately wanted to take it lighter, right? So I wanted to take it lighter in color because it's such a big, heavy piece. And because it's got a lot of beautiful detail. And that detail is going to show up so much better if I have it in a lighter finish than if it's in a darker finish. In a darker finish, you're going to lose some of that detail. Whereas with the lighter finish, I'm really going to be able to accentuate it. So I do envision the last piece before we are done with this, I am going to be doing a lot of kind of the aging, right, in all of around all this beadwork here and in all of this detailed molding in here, so that you're going to kind of accentuate all of those details on the piece. So I will be doing a lot of that, whether I do it with glazing or just some hand painting of some of that. I will be bringing out all of those details, because that's really the beauty of this. This is one where I'm not adding extra molding, right? You know, sometimes with these pieces, I'm building the molds and I'm adding the molds on because they lack a little definition or a little bit of interest. This piece, it was all there. It was all intact, right? I didn't have to add any of that. And that's really awesome for me. One, because it's the less that I have to do, but it's also what really makes it special. And you don't get a lot of the modern furniture doing that nowadays. So I'm going to want to have the opportunity to kind of highlight that and bring that out. Now you can see I'm trying to get a little bit of that pink color down into some of those crevices, so that, again, later, I think that this is a piece that I will definitely want to distress. So again, because it's older, I'm going to want to distress it. It's one of the reasons why I didn't necessarily want to have a primer on. I don't want to distress it down to the white of the primer. I want to distress it down, expose some of that wood. It's got a finish on it, so we're gonna leave some of that showing in some spots once we get to that point. That's gonna be beautiful, right? That's gonna highlight it. So those of you that were with me at the beginning and I said it's gonna look awful at this stage, y'all are believing me now, right? It's not going to stay this way. It's not going to look like a patchwork quilt forever. But I am looking at having some of these colors. This is the other thing about these doors, is that as much as it's got a little handle that fits on these doors, and it's got kind of this metal brace in the back that does not work or do anything. There is no catch. So I will have to be adding a magnetic clasp onto the bottom of both of these to make it a little bit more functional before I would sell it or call it done. Just nicer for its functionality for whoever would buy it. Although odds are this is going to be another one of those pieces that I wish I had room for, and I regret selling the bigger house and getting a small house. But quite honestly, I think that way about a lot of pieces, and there's no way that I could keep them all. So even if I had a big house, it would become super crowded and become a small house. But as you can tell, this is in the middle of my living room, and I have so many furniture pieces now that this is like couch to couch. There's no space. I don't even have room to be able to paint on these sides. So I do have on order, I've got a couple of big pieces that are on wheels in the back that we're able to move around on the floor to be able to move some pieces out of the way, especially when I have to take a picture or photograph of other pieces, because I have no room to do that. I only have one wall that I can stage against and take pictures against, which is that wall right back there. And I have the boho piece that we just finished up back there. And you're probably going to see that coming up in a really quick live because I keep staring at it. And as much as it's done, it doesn't feel done to me. So I think I'm going to have to go back to it and add some gold. It just seems a little unfinished or kind of flat, especially for a bohemian piece. So I think that I'm probably going to do that. Add some gold to it and relist it. So I haven't even taken it away from the staging wall because I keep walking by and looking at it and thinking, I'm not done, right? That's not done. And that's sometimes what I have to do is I just have to keep staring at a piece. There's sometimes with pieces, I bring them in to potentially start to paint them, and then I don't start painting. It drives my husband crazy because now I'm just spending days staring at it. But I have to wait sometimes for pieces to kind of speak to me a little bit, right? That sometimes the story of them doesn't come out right away. So this one, I kept having a bit of a battle in my head because it's a very stately looking piece, right? And there was part of me that was looking at taking it in a very conservative, a little bit formal look, which you probably, pink gook, you're probably looking at it and realizing that's not the direction I ended up with. Okay, just picking crud out of my paint can here. But I'm not looking at it going completely funky or completely outlandish. I am kind of adding the color to give it a little bit more fun and a little bit more life, and quite honestly to make it a little bit more modern in its appeal when it's finished, but it will still be a fairly conservative piece. So not conservative, but it'll still be, what was it, Margaret, that you said? Vintage. It's going to have that vintagey feel, which is still going to be kind of in keeping with the age of the piece. Well, this is where the original owner, she would probably just crying. Okay, I'm sorry, Eleanor. It's like, it'll all be okay in the end. I swear. I used to, even when I was 16, I would get my mother to take me to auction sales, like 15, 16, and that's when they were always live, right? And you're there with your little paddle, and I worked part-time at a local pizza parlor. I was the dishwasher, and I would take my money and I would use it to buy antiques. And so when I had my very first apartment, finally after university, I already had a bunch of antiques to be able to move into it. And I still have many of those original pieces here. Can't see this old blanket box that I use as our living room table, right? The coffee table. And I've left it in a natural wood, even though there's other painted pieces around. You can't see any of my furniture. It's all got stuff all stuck on top of it. The dining room table right now has that big honking cradle that I finished sitting on top of it. So in some respects, thank goodness for COVID, because they didn't have to do Easter and wonder where I'm going to fit people. Okay, So you kind of get a sense of what I'm doing, even though you might not know why the heck I'm doing it at this stage. What we've done is we've taken the three colors. We've taken sunshine yellow, so this bright yellow, just to kind of recap. We've taken this bright yellow. We've taken summer crush, which is kind of an orangey color. And we've also taken, oh, let me see if I can get it, cowgirl coral. So we've taken those three colors so far, and I think that was a close call on me dumping the orange all over myself. And we've added a bit of a rough base to it. Now, what I am going to do, because this is almost all dry, is I'm actually going to do that again. So where I've got these colors, I'm going to now start adding in and kind of layering on kind of a rough second coat of these colors to intensify it a little bit more. Okay, this is just spray mixture of water to kind of get it out. But I want, as these with a base color, I want them to be a little bit more intense than they were. But I didn't want to try and layer on the paint all at once in that base because tends to get a little bit gloopy. And Stephanie, this is where now I have something for the next layers of paint to grip onto. So don't try and put too heavy a layer the first coat, right? I'm just looking at that first coat, kind of mapping out my plan a little bit. And then the second coat starting to give me an idea of where I want some of those colors to go. So that as I start to I don't know if you guys can hear all the heavy breathing in the background. That's my old dog. Bless her heart. 16 and a half. But she's kind of at that stage where you hear every breath. So when all of a sudden she's not breathing very loud, I'm looking over, checking to see if she's still breathing, period. Right? Okay. So you can see where I'm just roughly starting to kind of do a little bit of blending. And I will say, one of the things I do, I have one of these brushes for each of the three colors that I'm using, but I also have my big chalk paint brush in case I wanted to do a little bit of feathering. Right? And in case anybody's concerned or wondering, it is not ultimately going to look like a sunset when we're done. This would not be, as much as the sunsets are great looks, I don't think this is really the piece to do a sunset on. A nice little dresser maybe. But I don't think most people want to have a big sunset in the middle of their dining room. And I just wouldn't do that to this piece. It just wouldn't work for me. Okay. So just kind of reactivating that yellow a little bit. And can you see how immediately, as soon as I added that little spritz of water, this started to blend up in there a lot better, create more of a soft texture. And if you're noticing, as much as I carried the yellow all the way, I'm not looking at adding these colors straight across. So here I had the cowgirl coral and I switched the orange. Over here I had orange. Now I'm going to cowgirl coral. And that kind of sounds like a bit of a plan, but it isn't. I'm looking at I don't want it to be totally balanced looking. I am looking at kind of creating a little bit of variety on here so that when we start adding some of our neutrals over top, They kind of blend. Okay, that drawer gives you a sense of where I want the whole piece to go, right? To start, before we bring in the next load of colors. But I am going to have to look at it tomorrow morning probably, and decide what I think some of those next colors are going to be. I am going to have the white to soften some of the shades. I am going to have some gray. I may bring in a little bit of a softer blue green from the DIY line. I am wearing this big baggy old shirt of my husband's, by the way, because I had my exercise clothes on, right? So I got my socks don't match my pants, but I had my workout shirt and pants on and stuff. But here's the thing, don't be fooled. I didn't work out. I don't know about you guys. I'm having a hard time. I'm good about working out when I go to the gym. I'm good about working out when I go to the dojang, because I do taekwondo. I suck at doing that on my own. I am not good. So I get up in the morning and I'm thinking, yes, I'm going to do some working out on my own. And no, I don't. So now my logic in putting these on is that there's not a lot of excess space in these suckers. So if I'm overeating, I won't be able to get in. So as long as they're fitting, I think I'm doing okay. So that's been my whole COVID plan now, that my jeans give me a little too much extra space. So it's kind of like, okay, if I'm still fitting into my workout clothes, then maybe it's okay. I'm better about going for walks and maybe going out for a bike ride than I am about saying I'm going to get up and, sorry, I've got a brush hair here, than I am about saying I'm going to get up and work out. But I am trying every so often to just kind of fit in a little bit of leg raises and kicks and things like that, so that I'm not a total dweeb when I get back into the dojang and all of a sudden I'm huffing and puffing and I can't do any of the basic warm-ups, let alone remember any of my patterns, which is going to be the challenge, is remembering all of those patterns. All right, that's already sounding like a bit of a nightmare trying to do that. That's when I start to think, well, I could put it down to my age. I could put my lack of memory down to being older and not remembering things so well. When really it was because I didn't do any of it. It had nothing to do with my memory. It had everything to do with not practicing. Okay, I don't know what you guys are thinking about all of this. Now, I know this drawer's kind of popped in, so I'm kind of painting inside a little bit. But for all of these drawers, when the front is finished, when it's all done, I will pop the drawers out and paint and clean up all of the edging. With some of these old pieces, I don't like to paint the inside edges until I'm a little bit more done the piece, because they don't always have a lot of excess space. That if you painted all the layers on all of the edges, both inside and, on the outside of the drawers and the inside of the braces, it will never fit. So there are a lot of times on these pieces I cannot paint the outside edges of the drawers. So, you will see newer pieces where people are able to not only paint the outside edges of the drawers, but they'll do you know, nice patterning, or they'll decoupage on some flowered paper, and I've done that as well. Almost never on these older pieces, because there just isn't the space to be able to do that, and that's just not a luxury that I've got. You know, you can't sacrifice the functionality for the look. So I will always leave those to the end, see what the finished look is, paint them out if I can. Okay, so if I've got space to be able to do that, then I will certainly paint them out. But if I don't, then I clean them up and I leave them blank. And the nice thing about the DIY paint is that it's reactivated with water. So if I can't paint the edges of these, I can, before I seal it, go and just wipe it down with a wet cloth and remove all that paint, no problem. So that's the beauty of that paint in a lot of respects, that I don't have that same challenge as with latex, where if it's on and it's dried, you're done. And here's the thing too with furniture, if you're painting for yourself, then, and you like latex and you like the look of it, and that suits your furniture, go to it. But if you're looking at selling furniture, know that there are people that will not buy a piece of furniture painted in latex, because people have allergies, and there are people that are allergic to latex paint included. I paint almost exclusively inside the house, and I am very prone to migraines, and I can get some doozies. So smells and odors and that kind of thing, I will sometimes walk into buildings going, okay, I am leaving now because I can smell the must and the mold, and I gotta leave. Right? It's like, no, I can't be here. I can feel the migraine already. So it can be that sensitive. This paint has like almost zero, if any, VOCs. So there's no smell. I mean, DIY paint, it smells kind of like dirt. It smells a little earthy, but completely natural. And really, like the Annie Sloan paint too, the chalk paints, they're the same deal. So using it inside, you don't have to worry about opening windows or any kind of major smells or anything getting out, bothering people in the family, or gee, I can only paint outside in the garage. You can barely walk inside my garage, let alone think that you were going to paint in there. It's kind of loaded up with all kinds of unpainted furniture, and my glass studio. Actually, I have pounds and pounds and pounds of glass rods, and I've got a torch and a kiln out there for originally making glass beads. So Stephanie, if you're still on, you know me from all of the bead stuff and the bead shows when I had my bead store and all that kind of thing. So how times change. But I still have the glass studio, and I will still go out there. There's been some pieces that I've done where I've made the glass knobs myself, that I wasn't able to find what I was looking for, so I went out in the studio and I made up my own glass knobs for it, which is kind of cool. I don't know that when I'm saying handmade glass knobs that people get that I know that because I made them. I'm not sure that a lot of people would necessarily care that makes a difference to them when people are purchasing the piece. then it becomes an extra story. And I think that that's always a nice element when you're buying a hand-painted piece, that you're buying the story with it too, right? That there's more to it than just, you know, it was in the IKEA catalog and I really liked it. So you've got a piece that's got some history, that's got a bit of a story behind it. I'm kind of thinking we might want to do a little bit of a color wash spray on this. There's a lot of crevices that some of that might settle into quite nicely and give us a little bit of a contrast on colors here and there. I really like how that coral and that yellow kind of mix and match with one another. I like that look. That looks good. Okay, so I think that you guys get the feel of where I'm going. I've got that other drawer, that other cabinet door to do. And then I have the two sides and the top to do as well. So I'm going to carry on and do the same thing with those. I've got some wheels coming today to put this up on, so I can try swinging it around, because I'm really limited on the sides with some spacing. So I'm probably going to have to do the sides a little bit later tonight to get them done, or I can at least do it in the morning so that tomorrow afternoon maybe we can work on the front face a little bit more. I'll pull some of the colors that I think that we might start to play with that. But we're just going to finish that extra layer over here. You're starting to see that there's a little bit better coverage here with it. Hopefully you're not too freaked out yet. Trust me. I would maybe say that with more confidence if I knew exactly where I was going. But I want it to be a little bit pretty. I want it to be a little bit feminine. I didn't want it to be just shades of gray. And I was trying to stay away from just doing another blue piece. Blue is my comfort zone. So layering blues and turquoises and things, that's my jam. So it was a little bit of a challenge for me to be able to take this in a different direction than that. That's not to say I won't have a blue in there perhaps as a bit of an accent. We'll see how that goes. But I did want to make it softer, a little bit softer looking, and I wanted some of these slightly more feminine colors to kind of peek out from under it, or give a little bit of that kind of that reflection through, a little bit of the warmth of it more than anything else. Sometimes if we just go straight gray, it can be very cool and a little clinical looking. And I didn't want that for this piece. I wanted a little bit of that warmth. So I wanted to start with some warmer colors so that when we distress a little bit, we get a bit of that back. And I am going to want to do some distressing on this to kind of age it a little bit, highlight the details. I'm definitely going to be doing some glazing or aging dust or a liquid in some of the crevices as well to do some aging with it. So I'm kind of loving the look of these colors, and where adding in some of the other layers and some of the grays could go with this, and adding a little bit of warmth. But I'm just gonna carry on doing more of the same, and I will see you guys tomorrow. So I hope that you're out enjoying the weather. I hope maybe you guys are exercising more than me and not just dressing to fake it. I will do something, I swear, before the end of the day. Whatever that happens to be. I might do my 30-30-30. So my 30 squats, my 30 side kicks, 30 front kicks, 30 push-ups, 30. Yeah. So I do this fake 30 thing, 30 sit-ups, 30 crunches, 30 leg raises. I will probably make myself do that before the day is through, which doesn't seem like a heck of a lot or all that strenuous particularly, but I got an old body, and if I don't keep it moving, I think that it's just going to shut down. And when all the quarantine lifts, I will be stuck in a chair and not able to get out of it. So I'm going to do a little bit of that work once I've finished doing a little bit of the work there. I hope you guys have an awesome day. Go and do something fun, do something creative, and I'll hopefully see you back tomorrow. Take care.